On this episode, we're going to be speaking to Jonathan F. of OJ Solutions, project manager, trainer, mentor, and deeply experienced professional. He's going to be talking about the gaps we find when we join projects and programs. He's going to be talking about how to ask why and who to ask why to get better results. And then we're also going to be talking about how you can increase your value in the marketplace as a project manager, so where you can demonstrate more value and earn more. All this and more as we go eye to eye. Hey, I'm looking for your catchphrase right now.
Grand rising, grand rising, grand rising.
I like that because it's the energy that I typically get from that. And it's so not typical to everything that I hear. And I do like the fact that typically when you say that, you have a big smile on your face. So welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
So as I mentioned before, this is the Eye to Eye Forum where we discuss ideas, implementation, income, insight, but basically do it personally and just with real people on the front lines, sharing their knowledge, sharing their insight from, all of their depth of experience. So Jonathan, why don't you tell us a bit about yourself and let people know who you are?
Yeah, hi. Pleasure, definitely. Thanks for having me. So I'm Jonathan, more commonly known as OJ. I've been within the project management space now for probably coming close to about 15 years. It's something I initially got into off the back of, certain modules in uni, then took it on as a master's. And I think really from there, I enjoyed what it entailed. I enjoyed, the fact that, you're able to take an idea and, deliver something tangible at the end of it. And over the course of my career, I've had the opportunity to work across multiple organizations, across different sectors and industries. And I'm happy to say, I've definitely gone in there and put my touch on those organizations, which is something I believe in. I believe in making an impact, obviously a positive one, making an impact and making a difference, and just leaving the place better than you found it. So that's something I've enjoyed over the last few years.
Well, that's interesting because I met you and we've been talking now because I saw that passion, I saw that energy, I saw that dedication, commitment, work ethic when I worked with you, big Fortune 100 company. Yeah. But your commitment is what has made you and I still want to and need to stay connected. So I really like that and your impact. Because you say it was about creating something and having that positive impact. What are some of the things that have really stood out in your memory where you kind of look and smile and go, yeah?
Oh yeah, I mean some of the projects that I've went on and delivered, I think the tail end of those projects in terms of the impact it had to the organization, either increasing their market value, market share, whatever it might be, or better still, the fact that the people within the organization were able to work better due to, some of these projects that I've been able to implement. So I think that's where I get the joy from. That's where I get the drive from, not just wanting to come in and tick the box, so to speak. I like to, challenge the status quo. Why is this? Because that's what a lot of people are afraid to do. You're afraid to ask the questions of why, because, most commonly what you will get is because that's how it's always been, so people don't bother. But if you're able to ask the questions why, you will see that, okay, there really isn't a why. It's just, because somebody said, and that's how it's been. But if you're able to confront that, it gives you that room for you realistically to then be able to show your value, which is another key thing for myself.
So who are you asking the why to? So, I mean, you're coming in, you're a project man, you're typically a contractor, right? Yeah, so you're a contractor with your own company kind of thing, but who are you talking to and asking the why?
Everyone and anyone, because again, if I'm wanting to do something and I'm getting told, oh, no, we don't do that here. Or, okay, but why? Being able to, should I say brave or bold enough to challenge, the status quo. I remember at said company, we needed something to be done by, a much higher up senior executives. And it's one of those, oh, you can't message him, you can't email him, you have to go through the PA and, the PA's PA. And I'm sat there like, but I need this completed, and again, we're all humans. So I don't see why we cannot interact regardless of the level, what I was then able to do. I mean, for a minute, I followed the status, emailed, the so-called, line manager or so, direct report. Listen, I need you to speak to this person so that, this person can do this. But as I'm typing, this person is behind me, their office is behind me. So I'm like, okay, let me clear the door. Yeah, you know where I'm going, right? Clear the gate. Let me see what's gonna happen here. And time was ticking, time was ticking, and what we needed to be, to get done was, we were going to miss the opportunity, So I've just said, okay, no worries. I've just got up, knocked on the door, he's seen me, big CFO, he's seen me, he's on the phone, he's like, 1 minute. I'm like, yeah, I'll wait, you know. I've got in, I'm like, hi, this is who I am, this is what I'm trying to do. I need you to do this, because if you don't, then we lose the opportunity, the business lose the opportunity, and ultimately, I'm sure you see the knock on and the impact of that. He said, oh, okay, he wasn't aware. And I'm like, right, there you go. So it's not like you couldn't do it, but because there's so many barriers and blockers and processes in place sometimes, which realistically is a problem for, large organizations, they kind of, I don't know, self-sabotage with all the blockers that they put in place, and the over processes of many of the steps. But eventually he was able to do it within a matter of minutes, and the job was done. And then, I went back to my line manager. I said, oh, don't worry about, connecting with him. I've already sorted it. He's like, what did you do? How did you do it? I'm like, I spoke to him. He's human.
But you know what? You've actually highlighted something that's really prevalent now.
Yeah.
Because number one, it's a hierarchy. Number two, it's also thinking about the fact that being on site. I've been working recently and people want to be off site all the time. There are things you can do. And that particular CFO, my desk was in front of his office for a reason.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anytime he'd open his door if I needed something, even just to start with saying hello, hey, how you doing? How was the holiday? To build that rapport. But
Exactly.
then to be able to have those opportunities to go, listen, I need a decision on this. How can you help? And he was quite helpful. So I realized, so when you do join an organization, what are some of the things that you find that are typically missing? Like say whether it's all from a project manager's perspective, what commonly you're finding the things are just not there that you'd normally expect to be there?
I think from my experience, so obviously I do a lot of training, and one thing I always tell my trainees is forget how fancy the company looks. I remember the first time I came across Canary Wharf, I'm looking around, I'm like, days, this is beautiful, all these high buildings, and like I want to work here one day, like a little kid. But over the years, you get into these organizations and you think you guys are just fancy in a fancy building, like, there's no, like, everything's a mess. Obviously, working on the infrastructure side for a lot of it, you go in and you see, for example, certain server rooms, and it's like, oh, this is not how it should be. So you kind of get a lot of that, but I think from organizations, really what's usually missing a lot of the time, first and foremost, is actually, when they've set the objectives, sometimes the objectives haven't been smart. And I know those that understand, SMART and the acronym and what it means, it's one of the most basic of things, but a lot of organizations still miss that, and outside of that, then, the general processes that they have internally, and even down to methodologies, what they actually want to use. Because from experience, a lot of companies will tell you, oh, agile, agile, agile. It's like, yeah, sure. You go in, it's like, oh yeah, just do stand-ups.
Would it,
Yeah.
would it be fair to say that, and my experience and just reflecting, if it aligns with yours, they use agile with a small a, and it usually means an excuse not to write things down.
Well, yeah, exactly. And it just prolongs, the timeline of things. Oh, it's agile. No, but it doesn't mean there's now this unending timeline. We still have to have a structure in place, and there's still, certain rules that need to be adhered to and followed.
Yeah. So you've come in, you've been asking the questions why of everybody. You've been building relationships in person, building rapport, asking the questions, getting things done, because we get paid on what we get done, right?
Yeah, sure.
You've identified these things. What are some of the strategies that you've used and that have been successful for you overcoming these gaps in processes, gaps in smart objectives, lack of understanding of the rationale of why, even behind the methodologies and the frameworks and the processes? What are some of the strategies that you've personally used?
I think it's showing them the difference, showing them where they are and, how it could be, and sometimes it's not even a case of you need to actually go through all of it, even if you just document it for them. This is a process that you currently have. This is how you do it. This is how you get from A to B. This is how long it takes you to get from A to B. But if you were to able to take a step back and reframe or restructure it, you will still get the same result, but again, you would have less time, in actually achieving it. So that's part of the benefits that, they stand to gain. But again, it's about fostering that openness, transparency, good engagement from a stakeholder perspective, and open communication, because I think that's one thing. If you kind of box yourself away and don't get that engagement in place, sometimes it's a bit of a problem. I would always say I'm very much the type that in office environment, I'm very much the high five type of guy. I'm seeing you, I'm high fiving you, because we're human. We need that interaction at a base. If you're thinking of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, we need that connection at a minimum. So having that in place, when it then comes to working, it makes it and facilitates, that process a lot easier.
So I'm hearing you, but I'm also thinking, listen, I'm Mr. Big Fancy C-level person, right? I've got PwC doing stuff. I got KPMG. I got them at X thousand pounds per day, right? And they're not pointing these things out. You're what, OJ Solutions? I mean, who are you trying to tell me, right? How are you going to try and document and tell me I don't have time for you? How do you overcome that? The maybe not being heard, or in fact, we didn't even hire you to do this, Jonathan, right? OJ, we brought you in to do this job. How
No,
dare you tell us how inefficient we are? How do you
well,
overcome that?
that's it. That's it. That's it. It's very correct. I think with OJ, taglines as an organization is engage, enhance, enable. That's all I'm coming in to do. I'm going to come in, engage with you, enhance your process, your systems, your business, all the rest of that, and enable you to perform better, to work better, to, increase your value as an organization, increase your output as a unit, whatever it might be. So that's some of the selling points that I would, want to get across to the organization. But again, it's literally showing them the art of the possible. I'm a true believer in having that growth mindset. So it's, again, there's not just a case of, slapping it on the table and telling the, executives, Mr. Big, big top dog at the, at the top also, that, this is it. It's literally showing them and walking through that. So over the years, part of one of the things I've been able to do, because one of the areas I also specialize in is M&A, I've been able to create a framework, which is called the BIC framework. So that's looking at the business side of things, the integration, and then the culture, how we merge all of that together. So by coming in and literally doing sessions with the employees, understanding their pressure points, their pain points, what their concerns are, I'm then able to take that and from off the back of that, put in place solid recommendations. And again, it's just providing it to the business. And with those recommendations, it will show clearly the benefits. Not all of it would, be something that could be taken immediately, but it could easily be phased out, from a delivery perspective.
So this is M&A. So I'm assuming this is larger organizations. How many of the organizations have taken up some part or all of the recommendations?
No, you're right. Some of them have. I wouldn't say all of them, definitely, but some of them have, and obviously they've been able to benefit from it. Again, sometimes you just feel like unless you're coming with a big price tag, some of these organizations don't want to hear it because they believe it's, the price tag is the key. Value is the key.
Absolutely.
Because you're paying 2.5 to, and I would always tell you I'm number 5 when it comes to the top 4. OJ Solutions number 5, so don't think because you're paying the big bucks, we're all in the game. We know how it works. Don't think because you're paying the big bucks right there at the top that, you're going to get quality all the time. No, but there are independents like ourselves, where, we're ready to go above and beyond because we have a bigger stake in it, we've got more skin in the game. We're not just representing a business, representing our business ourselves.
Ooh, that's a big. I remember I had a conversation where I was meeting with somebody from a large corporation. I won't say which corporation it was, but it sounds like Mokamola, right? And it was a beverage company. So, but what was interesting, the executive I met with, I remember he sat back quite, oh, this is me, blah, 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 blah. And he had a card and he slapped it down and goes, well, maybe you guys can try back with us or whatever. This is when I was doing some other work. And I remember I left with my colleague, and I was like, it's interesting because that man's status and credibility is tied up on the fact that that organization let him put his name on their card.
Yeah.
Whereas individuals like yourself, Jonathan, organizations, their credibility is increased by you allowing them to put your name
Yeah.
on their card.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I'm calling the contractor consultant kind of mentality. Because what are your thoughts on that? Because what is the difference in your mind between a contractor, a consultant, and then to me the hybrid of the contractor consultant, which is how I see you? So first of all, your definition in your mind, when I say consultant, what normally comes to mind?
I mean, because consulting is, for me, it's literally just coming in, giving a view on something, and helping to pave or pave a direction. Contractors more so actually coming in to then do the work. But very right myself, I kind of sit in the middle, and again, depending on the type of engagement and the engagement it is. But being in the middle, then again, it means there's a lot more value that's coming in alongside myself as well, because the key thing is, okay, it's not just as a contractor coming in to do the work, but again, as a consultant, you're pushing back on the business, you're making the business think, you're asking questions, you're saying, oh, why are you doing this? And granted, everybody's got different experiences, so I'm never shy to bring my experience, to bring my knowledge, because again, it's like, when people are telling you, oh, I've been doing project management for 20 years, but they've been doing the same thing for 20 years, right? Fair. Okay. But then you will have someone else that's been doing project management for 10 years, but guess what? They've done a variety of different types of projects, different types of environments. For me, that variety goes a long way, because that is exposure right there. So I'm able to then go in and engage to show value, show that exposure, take a lesson from a different organization, bring it in and say, look, this is how it was done here. Consider this, So it's not just a case of, oh, I'm just here to do the work and get out of there. It's, I'm here to do the work, but again, I want to see what's in the pipeline, what's in the future. I want to be able to give input. So that's something I always say. I don't want to come in and, every Friday just submit the timesheet or whatever it is, submit the invoices. That's boring. I want to make an impact, because me making an impact helps me, helps you. Everybody wins.
So with that said, I have a phrase that I'm kind of getting known by, which is the delivery of effective fill in the blank. And to me, it's primarily project management, communications, learning and development, change management. But many of the times, what you do, Jonathan, is what I consider an art that's rooted in science. So when I say that to you, that what you do is an art rooted in science, how do you interpret that?
I think the way I look at that is there's more to it. So it's not just a typical come in, do the job and get out. But again, from an engagement perspective, in terms of actually building structure and bringing in a supporting team, because that's something we're able to do as well. And it's just, one thing I always say to people is, especially everyone I talk to, is like, why'd you do this? Like, because I care. Because I care, Yes, we will, we're not doing it for free, but because we know what's at stake and what we stand to gain and the impact of it, there's more, it's almost like a white glove approach in a sense, because you really need those results and you really need everything to work based on, whatever that plan might be or the roadmap.
Because I see what you're doing is that artistic side is drawing upon all that cross-industry experience and knowing what to apply from those other industries, from those other experiences, from the methodologies, whether it be BIC, looking at all those elements, knowing what is right for that organization, which is how I see you as an artist. Interestingly enough, just for anybody watching the video, there is a line in the screen where the sunlight, where it's coming across you. But this is almost prophetic, Jonathan, because currently I'm working on a book called Out of the Shadows.
Okay.
Right? Which is basically around like the allegory of the cave from Plato. how somebody was in the shadows and they went out into the light and they saw the light and they go back into the shadows to educate and help people understand that what they're seeing are only shadows and aren't real. And as we've been talking, you've been slowly moving into the light. So I'm just saying, so not a video error. This has just got to work for me, right? You know, speaking through what you're seeing on the screen right now.
Definitely,
So
definitely.
what advice would you have for people? So as you know, we've worked together on a different program where it's about working with people who are at different stages of their career, who are looking to demonstrate the value up front, what they can do, and therefore it goes from them, from their whole idea to them implementing things into their career to increasing their income. So eye to eye. But what advice do you have for people who are looking at getting into project management? What are some of the key things you would say? There's three things they need to do to increase their value in the marketplace and get more out of what they're doing. What would you say those three things are?
Um, Easily, I would say networking, building relations, showing value. But one key word is being invested, right? That's what I would say, being invested. And it's what I say to all my guys, all my team, be invested, right? Somebody can be sat there 8 hours a day, 5 days a week and not be invested, you know? And I'll give you an example. There might be certain things that are said, but because they're not invested, they're not able to tie the two together. You know, they're not able to pull it up, pull it together. But if you're invested, you know, somebody can mention something about a different type of project or something else altogether, but then you're thinking already, oh, okay, that could impact me. Or, oh, okay, if that's the case, then maybe I need to do this, maybe I need to do that. That to me goes a long way, you know. So I kind of consider it as a very much as a relationship, you know. There's no how a relationship will grow, you know, if you're not invested, you know. So
Yeah.
you've got to be invested. I think being invested, I think for me goes a long, long way because again, with you being invested, those around you will know, you know, and for you to show that value, easy, it comes across naturally.
Yeah. And I think that's the whole key. And I think getting organizations to the point where they start recognizing
Mhm.
and paying for the value. I'll wrap it up with this, just a thought and just your thoughts on this. Because one of the exercises I do is I often will get out a banknote from another country
Mhm.
with leaders, executives, and the project team. And recently, whether it's a Hong Kong dollar or whatever. And recently, I used one which is like 200 shekels, and it's made out of paper still. That's why I like those kind of currencies. And I handed around and I asked everybody, "Would you pay £5 for this?"
Mhm.
And they're like, "Oh, nah, yeah, no." So why yes? Well, it looks interesting. Fine, good enough, right? Um, Somebody says, "Oh, because it's 200, so it must be at least maybe more than £5." Somebody will say like, "Well, no, just not interested." Well, why? Because I don't know what it's worth. And then what I've said to them is that 200 shekels is actually worth £24.
Mhm.
Whoa, that's a bargain. Ooh. Now its value has changed in their mind only because they understand
And the
its
word.
market value. But for most people, when they look to a contractor consultant,
Mhm.
right, or a consultant contractor, they're still thinking solely contractor. So
Yeah.
the day rates that you might be able to attract is because they're not thinking of the value that you're adding, even though this is what you shared in the interview,
Mhm.
right? Or they saw when they met you,
Yeah, yeah,
that you
yeah.
have that consultancy ability to be able to adapt the contractor work. There are you're more value than just a doer.
Yeah.
Do you see? So I think it's a whole thing of understanding value. And I think
That
that's
is
why working together, me, you, other consultant contractors can help carve our place out and then
definitely.
also help other people who are of that ilk,
Yeah.
have people recognize that there's a different value because it is pounds, pence, dollars, and cents. So just to kind of close out on your thoughts of as far as how you demonstrate value and how other people can probably take steps to demonstrate their value more clearly.
Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. The worst anybody can tell you is no. That's literally it. Thankfully, I was raised by a father that pumped me with the mind of growth mindset, positive thinking, the art of the impossible. So I've taken that on. It's something I push into my kids as well. So it's like there's no excuses. The worst anybody can tell you is no. And if they say no, hey, guess what? You pivot, you redirect, you change your direction, and you keep moving. So I think that is it. That's definitely something I would say. Like, don't be afraid. For those that understand Nigerian backgrounds, Nigerian parents will always tell you, that kid that got an A star or 100%, do they have two heads? No,
Yeah.
no. We've all got the same one head. Let's maximize it. Let's use it. So that's what I would say.
Okay. So thank you, Jonathan. And as you're saying that, you're
Mhm.
coming out of the shadows.
I can,
Literally, right?
I
See
can
what I'm saying?
see.
There's a God at work here. So
There you
thank you so much, Jonathan. I
go.
appreciate you taking out the time to talk and share with me, and look forward to working with you in the future.
Likewise.
Your information will be attached at the bottom, so people
Yeah.
get in touch.
Mhm.
They want to find out more about you and what you do. Thank you.
Perfect. No problem. Thank you very much. Take care.